Professor Kwok, we are now in the second part of our discussion where we tend to talk about the dark side of science. No, we enjoy science and everything around the discoveries and the excitement. But there are several aspects that are kind of, how to say, maybe restrictive or maybe not most optimal in the scientific field, in the scientific work, how science is being done, for example. And I always start by summarizing very briefly some of them. There are many others, but the most obvious are this kind of vicious circle about you have to publish or perish, you have to publish fast, you better publish in a good ranked journal. Then you have these kind of journals that are profiting enormously out of scientific work. And then this kind of process is connected to the granting system, which eventually gives you money to continue doing your science. All of this takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, and it's how it is regulated it's for me personally, it's very bizarre. But this is only one aspect. Then we have probably because of that, the reproducibility. You have so many experiments that cannot be reproduced in the different labs. Then you have the current crisis, especially in Germany. I don't know about UK. Maybe we can talk about it. But regarding highly trained PhD students who decide to leave academia just because either there are no positions or they don't want to be in this kind of 2 years contracts, 2 years temporary contract, and at the end you don't know if you will get a professorship or tenure track. This is an enigma, right? And they decide to leave and go to the industry, which is completely valid. Everybody can decide for themselves what to do. And there are plenty of opportunities outside academia, right? And there are many aspects. We were briefly talking about position of power and application for certain job positions. What do you think is, for you personally, the most pressing problem, and how would you like to address it, for example?
I think it's the academic pressure in general. I can see difficulties at different levels. So from PhD, finding a postdoc position, at the time you probably think it's difficult, but looking back probably is the easiest career choice, basically, and finding a job. Postdoctoral scientist to a permanent position, the first step is the most difficult, I think, in general. I mean, if you look at academic environments in everywhere globally, it's not just in Germany or in the UK. I think in general, funding is insufficient to keep these to keep sufficient academic, basically. And the number of PhDs that we are training is a lot. The question here is, one, do we need that many? I'm sorry, but this is, I think, the situation. I think it's the same situation as, there are lots of discussion in the UK now, for example. Do we need all 70% of our high school students to be in the university? The society functions in different ways. So you need people doing technical jobs. You also need people doing scientific jobs. You do need other people doing other different tasks. Does it need everybody at that level? So do we need to train that many PhD students, and therefore we saturate the market? And we need then, in order to solve the problem, we need to create more positions. It is unsustainable in the first place. I'm not saying that students are not talented. They're all talented in that case. But it is like what you said earlier. So a lot of the students, at least a significant proportion of students, then went into industry. Is that a problem in the first place? I would not say so. As an educator in the university, I also think we are not there to train people to retain in the lab. Of course, we do like to know that the competent students who has the potential, they will be supported. But if, for example, if their characters actually doesn't fit with academia, characters here can mean a lot of things. So, for example, their stress resilience, their home or family balance in general, whether they have care duties, and whether they can dedicate the time to academia research. There are different considerations here. If the academic environment is not fitting, is that a problem that they actually go and seek other opportunities that they can still make use of their education, their training, still contribute to the society and help the society in different ways? I really don't see a problem in that. The problem, of course, is the frustration from these populations, the postdoctoral scientists. It's frustrating in doing that, especially working in biomedical sciences. I'm not saying that other fields are easy in publication, but the time, the duration of them getting the results is a lot shorter than in biomedical sciences. If you think about aging experiments, just aging the animals takes 2 years, right? So of course you can say that you don't have anything in between, but the reality is not. So you do have something in between as well, but at the same time, you still need to finish that. I mean, the duration of the experiments per se is already a lot longer. So then how are we going to make sure that these people, after suffering so long or after sustaining so long in their PhD, find a job that they would like to? And in the case, if they really want to stay in academia, they will be supported. That is the challenging situation. I think, and this is not just the university that will have a say on that. I think the different funding bodies and also the government in general will need to address this problem, because a lot of the fundings from the university are centrally allocated. So that was able to sustain in the past in the history in the historical university funding models. Now the society has changed, and we are not catching up with the changing on the society in the society. And then how will the government funding be able to capture these change of environments, and therefore will be able to sustain, to support our young scientists? I think that's something that the policymaker, together with the university and the educator, needs to think about that. To answer your question is, we don't have a short answer for that. It is a problem. It's a big problem, because we do have these populations of students and the scientists there desperately looking for jobs. I would encourage the people really think about their own career aspiration, their own character. I'm not discouraging people to stay in academia, because it is fascinating, it's curiosity driven, it's very interesting. The environment, on the other hand, is difficult. Like what you said, you need to do your own research. You need to make sure that you're doing good research, not just doing research, but doing good research, able to publish it, able to secure funding, able to convince your people that this is a good story and therefore they should give you money, right? And at the same time, you also, if you are in a university system, you also need to do the administration work as well, and some of the other teaching. So there are quite a lot of tasks that it's built into your professorship position. One position, but you're doing a lot of different things as well. So you need to be prepared for that. It is a difficult environment. If you don't think you're ready for that, I do encourage people to look further than what the traditional academia is. Industry is one of them. A lot of my students, for example, were actually doing consultancy work. They're doing clinical trial running. They're really making use of what they learn. For example, in my lab is spinal cord injury, and helping to run some of the clinical trials in universities or in pharmaceutical companies. They are making use of what they have learned, and I don't have problems with that in general. So be flexible and don't just look at what is traditional here, but look broader. And I think that would be a better way than struggling and waiting for an opportunity to come up, because that is frustrating in general.
Very interesting. So rather unpopular opinion, do we need that many students? Which on one hand, we cannot restrict the desire of anybody to study whatever. We live in a mostly free world. On the other hand, if we raise the bar for certain PhD programs, then you immediately will have drop in the candidates. So maybe there should be some balance there. I totally agree with that. Somebody has to regulate it. We cannot have constantly, it's profit, I understand, etc. But it doesn't make sense on the long run. It's not sustainable, right?
Yes.
Interesting. How do you feel about the publishing, for example?
Yes.
Let me ask you a question. Do you think that big journals have to pay reviewers for their work when they review a paper?
I would take the question from the other angle. I do think, I already said that in academia, being an academic, we have a lot of different tasks already, right? And it is the goodwill of the academic in reviewing other people's work and then getting it published. So we do, generally for scientists, we do want to do that because it's supporting your community, supporting your colleagues, even though it shouldn't be the colleagues in your immediate surrounding. But there's a limitation of time, right? So can we still do more? To be honest, time is getting more and more limited and more precious in general. It means that a lot of the people who are really specialized in the topic, they basically would not have the time in doing that. And therefore, either the publications or the manuscripts will be sent out to somebody who's not as familiar in the topic, wrongly reviewed, inappropriately reviewed, or it is going to be published without the quality. You talk about reproducibility of data. I give the scientists the benefits of the doubt. I don't think they are intentional. I think at least a lot of them are not intentionally creating something that cannot be reproduced. The problem is with a rush of preparing a manuscript, a lot of the small factors are being omitted. They may not be cited in the manuscript. For example, if you're doing cell culture, how many minutes you take the neurons out into the incubator and put it back again will influence strongly of the survival of the neurons. Then in one lab, they will be saying that, for example, postnatal neurons is not surviving. The other lab is saying that, wow, it is really good in our hands. Which one is correct? Both are correct. But it's these small details we cannot actually cater for in a rushly prepared manuscript. So the quality control needs to be better, and sharing of data, sharing of protocols needs to be better in general, and we need to be very open in communicating this to our colleagues, at least in the first place, and to the surrounding. Yes, and I think that is a problem. Answering your question of whether reviewers should be paid, as you said earlier, I think a lot of the publishing companies are making huge profits. So we are paying for publication. For the general public, you probably don't know about that. For publishing a paper, we actually need to pay a fee, a very high fee in publishing the paper. People who's reading them also pay a fees to read the paper, right? So the publishing companies are having both benefits in general. So I think there's a move in general in the UK, at least, to of this concept of pay for reading, but not pay for publishing. So it should be the people, the university, the entities that's subscribing to the journal needs to be paying the fees, but not the people who's publishing who needs to pay the fees. I think that is probably a more appropriate model. In that case, whether reviewers should be paid is a controversial situation. In multiple times when I'm reviewing paper, and I was thinking, why did I agree with that? They should pay us for the time. Yes, but realistically, I do not know. For some of them, I think yes. Some of them may not be, particularly for those journals who are associated with professional societies. I do not think they should pay because they actually use the fees to support the activities in their professional society. Those, I completely agree with that. But those profit-making ones perhaps should consider that.
I'm talking about those profit-making ones that we have to pay 13,000 to publish.
Absolutely.
And plus you have another 30 articles in the certain issue, plus commercials, etc.
Yes, exactly.
And others. But yeah, another hot topic. Yes. We are slowly progressing in time, and I'd like to thank you once again for your valuable comments on this topic, and see you in a bit during lunch.
Thank you very much.